But he's not anti-science. We've crying out loud. He has 2 PhDs in evolutionary biology. Yeah, I know I'm repeating myself here, but I think that sometimes... I know I'm really repeating myself here, but I think it's necessary. And, like I said, I'm not an intelligent design person, I'm a young Earth creationist. These are very different viewpoints. I mean, to lump the two together is like saying that, Christianity and Hinduism are the same thing. Well, to an atheist, they might almost seem alike. I mean, maybe some of the arguments for Christianity might also be good arguments for Hinduism. Just as some of the arguments for intelligent design, the arguments for creation might be very good. Now, take it outside of religion, because I don't think creation science is religion. I don't think intelligent design is religion. And obviously there might be a religious component behind it, but I don't view them as religion. You know, even evolution has a materialistic philosophy behind it. The idea, well, we're not allowed to consider anything outside of this particular philosophical bubble. I mean, it's not historical. Charles Darwin didn't view it that way. And Charles Darwin said a pretty similar thing to Proverbs 18:17. Or Proverbs 18 in general. Proverbs 18, I think it was 18:2, said, hey, fools don't care about knowledge. They don't care about wisdom. They just care in hearing themselves talk. They just care about hearing their own opinion. And Proverbs 18:17 said, the first to present his case seems right, till another comes forward and questions him. And Darwin said almost essentially the same thing, and it was his preface for his introduction on the origin of species. I can't remember exactly which one. But he said that, and it was in context to creation evolution, I'm not taking him out of context. He said that in order to, he said that if we come, in a nutshell, I can't quote him exactly because I don't have the quote in front of me. So when we come to a scientific question, and he was talking about creation versus evolution, so we need to consider all arguments and all evidences for each viewpoint. And you bring them all together and then decide. And he didn't say anything along the lines of, well, we're only allowed to consider one side. And a lot of the arguments for evolution presuppose the idea that that intelligence is something that we can infer in nature. I mean, I've heard it said before that those who say that intelligent design can't be disproven, that there's no way it could possibly be disproven, therefore it's not scientific. Those are the same people that spend most of their time trying to disprove it. I mean, for those of you who don't know, in science, something has to be falsifiable. That means there has to be a means of being able to prove it wrong for it to be considered scientific. Now, I don't entirely agree with that because, for example, we know that Stegosaurus existed. Would there be any way to disprove the idea that Stegosaurus existed? No. Of course not. There's no way to disprove there's no way to prove that Stegosaurus never existed. Because it's pretty much impossible to prove a negative. However, we can prove that it existed because we find its bones. Actually, as a creationist, I would say that those bones were rather recent. And evolutionists will say that they're old. I'm actually going to be making a video on that pretty soon. I intend to call it Dinosaurs, the Bible, and Noah's Ark, or something along those lines. But when we look out in nature, if we see a rock, just a plain old rock, we can't prove that nobody formed it that way. We can't disprove the idea that somebody formed it that way, of course not. However, when we find an arrowhead, there's strong evidence that it was designed. When we find a robot, strong evidence that it was designed. When we find an animal, there's strong evidence that it was designed. And I was reading a lot of... the article I read, it was kind of... it lumped intelligent design and creation together, and it failed to distinguish between the two. The two are very different. I mean, whether or not you want to accept it, whether or not you think that they're right or wrong, they are very different ideas. Objectively. I mean, you could think both Christianity and Hinduism, or you can think both Aristotelian and Nietzschean philosophy are wrong. You can say, okay, Aristotelian philosophy and Nietzsche's philosophy, both wrong. That doesn't mean you lump the two together and say they're the same thing. I mean, by no means. You know, Paley's arguments and Aristotle, I mean, they would have some parallel. However, to lump them together and say they're the same thing is just plain not true. You know, Muhammad and Jesus had a lot of things in common. You know, Jesus, of course, didn't believe in going and killing the unbeliever wherever you find him. I mean, that's blatantly in the Quran. I mean, that's in chapter 9 of the Quran. It does say, go kill the unbeliever or go kill the polytheist wherever you find him. I mean, Jesus never taught anything like that, though, and to be honest, the Bible doesn't teach that either. Does say there is a time for peace and a time for war, and the Israelites were asked to wipe out the Canaanites. That is a separate topic. But it doesn't say go around and kill the unbelievers wherever you find them. They're very, very different, and I shouldn't have even brought it up right now. But people to lump the two together really showed a lot of... It shows a bit of a dishonesty. It shows you just lumping together any ideas you don't like. And it's not good. It's not a good thing. You know, it's not a good thing. And I'm sorry to be so long-winded. There was just so much I wanted to say, and it's all just not coming out. The one thing I do want to say for Eugenie Scott is that I am praying for you. And there's a lot of people praying for you, and I think you're a very special person, just like every other person. I think you're a very special person, just like everybody else. You are uniquely a special person. I understand from one of your videos you have children. And it was something you had mentioned in passing, so I don't know. But if I heard you correctly, you have more than one child, and you probably value them each uniquely. It's not just like, hey, here's a submarine sandwich, yay, another submarine sandwich. You don't love the submarine sandwiches individually. Each one might taste different and taste good for its own reasons, but you don't love them individually. But a person, I have a lot of just people in my life. I will love my mother for different reasons than I love my wife. I'll love them each individually. I love my best friend Aaron. I love Bethany. I love my nephew Ryan. There's people out there that I love, and if I have children, I love the idea of having many children, even if you have to adopt them. But I mean, it's obviously, I think this is a bit of a fantasy world, but I would love the idea of being an Adam and Eve situation, living for nearly 1,000 years and having children. I wouldn't want to treat my wife like a baby factory. I would never want that. But the idea of being able to bring up many young children, if I could do so without harming my wife, that would be a wonderful idea to me. But I would love every one of those children particularly and individually. And that's how God loves you. That's how God loves Eugenie Scott. He made her. He made her special. He made her very, very special. He made you very intelligent. And while I disagree with a lot of your philosophy, and for reasons that I spoke nowhere near as clearly as you speak, I still will say God loves you, and there's a love in my heart for you too. And it's not a perverted love. Our society is so out of whack with regards to love and what love really is. And love isn't, they turn everything into a sexualized love. And I think that confuses a lot of people. I think a lot of times people love someone and they think it's sexual, and it's not. The Greeks had 3 or 4 different words for love. They had one word for brotherly love, and they would have a different word for lustful love, which at the end of the day is not real love. And they had a different word for family love, and they also had agape, which is a word for unconditional love. And it's often the word used for God's love for humanity. Each individual person he loves infinitely. And C.S. Lewis has said, in his opinion, the gates of hell are locked from the inside. Those who are actually in hell, they're not there because God decided to lock them away, and they're not trying to get out. In his opinion, if God were to open the doors wide and say, "Come out and come to me," they would say, "No, we choose to burn in hell because we hate you so much." And I hate the idea. Any possibility of you spending eternity there, I don't want that. Never mind that you're a famous person. Never mind, if you became saved, if you became born again, I don't think one other person would become born again just because of that. God could move their hearts, and God could use that. God could use that to soften their hearts. But at the end of the day, if you became a Christian, people would say, "Oh, she's off her rocker." To be honest, I think a lot of your colleagues would turn around and betray you and stab you in the back in a heartbeat. I don't think that they would stand by your side if you said, "Oh, I became a Christian," and even say, "Well, I believe in creation science." They'd stab you in the back so quickly. I don't think they'd even consider it. My cousins got very, very angry with me when they found out I became a Christian, found out I started to embrace creation. They got very angry, and the immediate, I was talking about scientific reasons, and their immediate objection was, they viewed the church, unfortunately they were raised Catholic, and they went to a particular church that taught that women were an inferior creation to man. And while women are created different, obviously we have physical differences. No. The idea that we are created unequally is totally wrong. It's not in the Bible. Some theologians have pointed out, God created Eve out of Adam's rib, out of his side, to be beside him, not to be below him so he could be, not out of his toes so he could be above her, not out of his head to rule over him. And the idea of male leadership in the family, if there is a certain role where a man is supposed to have, where he's supposed to take charge, and we're assuming it's a good man, we're assuming it's a Christian man, where he's supposed to take charge, he's supposed to help his family, he's supposed to take a particular leadership role. Even that idea wasn't there in the Garden of Eden, because it wasn't needed. And God hates the way this world has become. A lot of people say, "Well, God is love, therefore he can't hate." No, because God is love, he must hate. He loves babies, therefore he hates seeing them get killed. He loves people, therefore he hates seeing them get sent to hell. He loved his son, and therefore he hated seeing him on the cross. And the son hated being on the cross, but he loved you, and that's why he went there. He went to the cross because he loves you.